What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to be putting the Shinko 241 trail tires on the Sting. This video is just going to be kind of like a how-to tutorial about how to do a tire change on these bikes. There's a few little tips and tricks that I'm going to show you that can make tire changes a little bit easier because they are kind of a pain in the butt. And these tips are also going to greatly reduce your risk of getting a pinch flat when you go to change your tube. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so if you're going to change your own tire, the first thing that you're going to need is probably going to be the most important thing is a good quality set of tire spoons. Do not use a flathead screwdriver. That's probably the fastest way to get a pinch flat or pinch your tube putting it in. But just a good set of tire spoons like this that have a nice little scoop on there. I picked these up on Amazon for pretty cheap if I remember right. And they also came with these little rubber guards for your rims. I've never used these before, but I guess the idea behind them is they're supposed to go on your rim, and when you pry the new tire on, these are supposed to protect your rim from getting scratched. And the next thing that you're going to need, these two things are going to make this a lot easier, and they're also going to greatly reduce your risk of getting a pinch flat. And that's going to be WD-40 and baby powder. The WD-40 we're going to use on the tire to lube it up and help it slide onto the rim a little bit easier, and the baby powder we're going to use on the tube when we put it inside the tire before we mount it. That way when we install the tire and inflate it for the first time, the powder will kind of let the tube slide around a little bit if it needs to, instead of pinching and getting it flat and you having to start the entire process all over again, because it's extremely frustrating when that happens. I'm going to be demonstrating on the front wheel, so first thing you want to do is get a 19mm socket on that axle bolt there. Go ahead and loosen that up. Next, what you're going to want to do is loosen up the pinch bolts. Just 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. Just go ahead and get those loose until you can see some threads on the outside by the head. And then this should be able to just kind of come out by hand. Get it all the way out to about the end. Screw it back in a little bit and just go ahead and give it a pop. And now your axle is going to be coming out the other side. You can go ahead and grab that and just pull it right out. Alright, once you got your wheel removed, for this next part I'm going to go ahead and use a 5-gallon bucket, kind of like a tire stand. I'm just going to sit the wheel in there like that. I will say though, if you have an actual tire stand made for this available to you, or if you have the funds to buy one, something like this, highly recommend using a tire stand if you can. Alright, coming around to the valve stem here, first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and remove the cap and go ahead and let all the air out of the tube. When you've just about got all the air out of the tube, you can kind of keep the valve stem depressed and just go around and kind of squeeze out any excess air that you can get. The more you can get out here, the better. Alright, once you've let all the air out of the tube, next thing you want to do is take a 12mm wrench and go ahead and get this lock nut off of the stem. Just go ahead and loosen that all the way out and off. Alright, once you've got that lock nut completely removed there from the valve stem, what you're going to want to do next is go ahead and take one of your tire spoons. I don't like getting scratches in my rims, especially when I'm changing the tires, so I'm just going to do everything I can to be cautious to avoid it, and hopefully this helps you guys avoid having to bust out Mr. Sharpie. Alright, so in order to get the original tire off, what I'm going to do is take my spoon. I'm going to start here by the valve stem. I'm going to go in backwards with it and just try to hook it on the back side of the tire there like that. Once I got that one in place, I'm going to go ahead and get my second spoon. Get that one in place there right on the inside of the tire just like that as well. Make sure it's grabbing. I'm also going to go ahead and do it with a third spoon. And just go in there, kind of grip it on the back side of that tire like so. Alright, so once you got your 3 spoons in their place, I'm going to go ahead and grab my first one. Hold these two while you're doing this so they don't fall. Go ahead and just push that one down. Hold it towards the center of the hub. And now kind of use your arm to hold that down, as well as hold your third over here. Grab your second spoon, go ahead and flip that one. Pull that one down to the hub as well. And now on your third one, go ahead and do the same thing. Flip that one up. Alright, what you can do now is remove your middle, spin the tire around, and go ahead and get a bite further down. And in order to do this, you kind of want to push the tire out of the way so it gives you room to push the spoon in there without hassle. So just kind of just like that, get it down in there, grab the inside of the tire, boom. And once you get to this point, and you've got about half of the tire going, it gets much easier. You can just go ahead and take the spoon, get it in there, boom. Every time you do this, it's just going to get easier and easier from here on out. Really starting it is only the hard part. Alright, keep working your way around. Alright. Once you have one side of the tire removed all the way around the wheel, we're going to go ahead and remove the tube. Just go ahead and find the valve stem hole and then just reach inside there and go ahead and start pulling out your tube. Pull it out of the valve stem first, and then work your way around. Pick the tire up with one hand and go ahead and pull the tube out with the other. Just kind of lift and pull, lift and pull, lift and pull, lift and pull, lift and pull. Alright, now you got your tube out. This is the first time I've seen one of these tubes, and I will say this doesn't feel like a dinky tube. This feels like a pretty heavy duty tube to be coming stock on the bike, so another point for Talaria. Alright, so once you get to this point, usually on a bicycle wheel, you're certainly not going to be able to do this on a motocross bike, but I think with this CST tire we're going to be able to get away with it. So to get the tire the rest of the way off of the rim, usually you can do it by hand and just kind of get to the top here and push. Simple as that. Tire's off. Alright, so same way we just pushed the old tire off, we're going to have to try to push the new Shinko tire onto the rim as well. This is a non-directional tire as far as I know, so it doesn't matter which way you put it on. And to make the first part going on a little bit easier, we're going to go ahead and take our WD-40, we're going to spray it around the bead of the tire, wipe it in with a rag, and that's just going to lubricate the tire and make things slip into place a little bit easier so you're not fighting it as much. Go ahead and give it a good spray. Wipe it around with a rag, just kind of smear it around, get it evenly distributed. Alright, now we're going to try to push this onto the rim. Just going to get it started, pulling it around. Pushing. Boom. Slipped on there like a glove. Alright, now that's the easy part. Next we got to get the tube back in. So there's two things that I do to a tube before I install it. The first being I go ahead and pump it up, not a lot, but just enough to where it takes shape. You know, not really any pressure on it, but just enough to where it'll hold its shape as a circle, kind of like so. The next thing I'm going to do is coat it in baby powder. I'm just going to give it a nice generous coating and kind of rub it around, get it even. And what that's going to do is kind of let the tube slide around in there a little bit and be less prone to sticking and pinching and getting stuck to the tool when you're putting the tire back on. This just reduces the risk of getting pinch flats, and I'm a big fan of using baby powder on my tubes. Once you got your powdered donut, you're going to want to go ahead and get the tube back in the rim. Just go ahead and locate the hole for the valve stem, and that's where you're going to want to start. Go ahead and lift the tire up. Go ahead and slip the tube in there and try to finesse it with your fingers to get the valve stem to poke through that hole. Alright, once you got your valve stem coming through a little bit, just go ahead and take that lock nut that we took off earlier and just gently screw it down on there a couple of threads just to keep it from backing out and falling inside your rim once you get the tire on. And then once you got that stuck there, just go ahead, lift up on the tire and just squeeze the tube in, work your way around, just kind of prying back with the tire to give you some space, and then just with your fingers just pushing the tube in as you go around. Should go in pretty easily and just kind of take its spot in the rim and in the tire. Once you got that all the way in there, go ahead and squeeze it around, make sure it's in there nice and snug. Check your valve stem at this point and make sure that it's still straight. Sometimes things can get a little tweaked when you're putting the tube in, and now is an excellent time to go ahead and straighten it out before you go ahead and get the tire and everything back on. I'm now going to do the same thing we did to the other side of the tire with the WD-40, except this time I'm going to spray it on a rag and just kind of wipe it around. I realized last time spraying it out of the can is probably not the best idea, especially if you get it on your brake rotor. Having WD-40 on that part of your bike's not going to be fun. Just give it a nice coating around the bead. I'm going to start at the valve stem again. This time we're going to be using the spoon to go in and grip the inside of the rim instead of the tire. So I'm going to go ahead and push this one in here, get it just to where it bites on the inside of the rim. I'm going to go ahead and get 2 more of those set up so that way when we start prying they'll already be in place and we won't have to fight the tire to get those in there. Probably going to go ahead and stick another one of them about right here. And you don't want to go too far in, just far enough to where that little knurled part there, that little curl, can grip the rim. If you go too far, that's when you start grabbing your tube and pinching that against the rim and all that stuff. Just far enough to where you bite, and just far enough to where it won't slip off when you go to pry. So I'm probably going to go ahead and put this third one about right here. Lift up the tire a little bit, just get it just to where it bites the rim there. Come back here to my first one. Over here by the valve stem, I'm going to go ahead and lift and hold that in position. Go ahead and lift number 2. It's going to kind of sink the tire down in there a little bit. And hold these with your arm. My arm's kind of going to be in a shot, but then you're going to go ahead and lift your third and pop that down. At this point, hold your first and your third, and you can go ahead and release the second. It honestly helps having another person doing this, but you can go ahead and release that one and rotate your wheel around a little bit. There's also a thing called a bead buddy, which I've seen used. It's basically like one of these spoons that you can kind of put in there and set and forget, and it'll just hold the bead there for you instead of you having to reach over there and hold it. I'll put a link to one of those in the description if I can find it. I think Motion Pro makes them, but pretty handy little tool if you're doing this by yourself. Alright, same thing. Now that we've got our middle spoon removed, we're going to go ahead and rotate the tire. Get in there a little bit further, go ahead and lift just enough to get it in there. Hold your other spoon and press that tire down in, like so. Hold that one. Remove your middle spoon. Alright, once you got your middle spoon removed again, keep rotating around. Make sure that those guys are staying snug. Hold this one. And go ahead and get you another bite. Go and lift the tire up. Put the spoon in there just to where you can see it reach the edge of the rim. Now hold this spoon and go ahead and pry that one down. Slip the tire in there just like that. And remove your middle spoon. Same thing, rotate a little bit more. Now this part of the tire is where it's going to get hard. And once it gets too hard to where I can't get it anymore with the spoons, I'm going to show you what to do next to kind of free up a little bit of slack in the tire and make those last couple pries a little bit easier. Alright, it's getting down to the wire now. Go ahead and get your spoon in there just on the inside of the rim. And at this point you kind of want to be taking smaller bites because the tension on the tire is going to be much greater. Make sure you don't lose that spoon. Alright, I'm going to keep that one there. I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to rotate. And I'm not going to go right in the middle of these two. I'm going to kind of go closer to this one just to take a smaller bite because like I said, the tension of the tire is really stretching here. So just get it right on the inside of the rim. Hold this. Just kind of take that little bite there, get that in there. Hold that. Get this spoon out. I'm going to do one more little bite here. Kind of pick up the tire to give you the room you need to get in there on the rim. There we go. Hold this one. Another little bite. Oh yeah, it's getting tight now. Alright. Now, when you get to this part, this is where things are going to get fun. Alright, the tape was a bad idea. Just took the tape off the spoons. It worked great until we got to the end here, and then when the spoons got hard to remove from the tire, the tape started unpeeling and ripping, so don't put tape on your spoons. If you're that concerned about scratching your wheels, this set of spoons that I'll link comes with these little rim guards, these little plastic rubber things that you can put on the rim where you're prying, so this will probably be a better option than putting tape on your spoons. Alright, once you get to the end, right when you're about to get the tire on, that's when things are going to get hard. And when that happens, you can kind of spin the tire around and just kind of squeeze and push all the slack of the tire around to where you're working. Just kind of squeeze it like this and push all towards the area where you don't have on the rim yet. It'll kind of free up a little bit of the tire and just give you a little bit more slack to play with when things get tough there at the end. Alright, now that we push that slack around, this should be a little bit easier. We're just going to walk the dog nice and slow for the rest of this way all the way home. Just going to take little bites. Another spoon. Lift that up. Just going to take a little bite. Hold that one. Take the spoon out. Alright, it's looking like Looking like one more bite might get this done, but this is the part where it's tricky because now the tire is stretched so tight that it's touching the rim. You really want to make sure you lift up on this tire when you get your spoon through, or else you're going to scratch your wheel right there. This part will actually really help if you have somebody to help you. You can go ahead and push the spoon in while they're sitting here holding up the last part of the tire, just to where it clears your wheel and doesn't scratch it on the way in. But once you've got that one in there, should be the last pull, hopefully. Boom. Just mounted the tire. Go ahead and remove all your spoons. And guys, this is just baby powder. This is not scratches, by the way. Boom. Tire's mounted. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pump it up to about 50 psi. And I just always do that. I pump them up to about 50 or 60 just to go ahead and seat the tube and seat the tire bead. And check for leaks, and if all that checks out, I'll go ahead and drop the pressure back down to what I'll be running. And also just go ahead and check your valve stem here, make sure that that's straight. Yeah, just make sure your valve stem stayed straight before you go put a bunch of air in it. And yeah, go ahead and do a pressure test and come back. Alright guys, once you've pressure tested it up to 50 psi, go ahead and drop it down to your desired psi. And then the last thing you're going to want to address before you go and throw the wheel back on your bike is going to be the valve stem cap here. Now there's a lot of mixed opinions about these little lock nuts here on the valve stem. I will say, if you want to put it back to exactly how it was, go ahead and tighten that lock nut down on the valve stem until you get to the rim. Go ahead and snug it up and replace your valve stem cap. I've been riding the bike like this since I got it, and I haven't had any issues with the tubes or anything like that yet. But on motocross bikes, they either don't run this nut at all, or there's just a little rubber thing there, because the idea is, especially on a back wheel, with these not having a rim lock, if your tire spins at all on the rim because of the torque or because of anything like that, if the valve stem is locked in place with that nut and it spins at all, it'll be prone to ripping the Schrader valve right off the tube. So typically what people will do is either not run it at all, but what I'm going to do is just kind of run it out enough to where it'll still be there, but only enough to where when I tighten down my valve stem cap, it hits it. I'm not going to run it all the way down to the rim. So I'm just going to tighten my valve stem cap down and go ahead and loosen that out until it touches that. That way it's got a little bit of wiggle room if the wheel does decide to spin on the rim a bit, and maybe it'll be less likely to rip in the Schrader valve out of the tube. And that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on the bike and go ahead and get the back wheel changed as well, and then I will be doing a review video on the Shinko 241 trail tires later this week, kind of just giving my thoughts and opinions on them, how they perform on the road, how they perform off-road, and what I think. If you feel confident about changing your tires, go ahead and give it a shot. Hopefully some of the things I mentioned in this video can make the process a little bit less aggravating. If you don't feel comfortable doing a tire change, or maybe if it's your first one, it may be honestly worth the money just to go pay a bike shop or a motorcycle shop to do it for you. Don't know what it costs, but it can definitely save you a lot of headache and a lot of time if it's not something that you've done before. But if you do want to tackle it, hopefully some of the things you saw in this video will help. If they did, greatly appreciate it if you guys go ahead and drop the video a like. Helps me out, helps the videos show up higher in search results, so you would be helping the channel out a ton. Again, I'll be doing a video on a review of the Shinko 241 tires later this week. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Peace!